Tonight, you will get dressed without thinking about it. You will pull on a shirt, step into pants, maybe grab a jacket if it's cold. It feels automatic, almost invisible. But the real answer to why you do this is far stranger than because it's cold outside. Your body used to be covered in thick hair, just like every other primate on this planet. Then, at some point, it wasn't. You lost that natural covering long before you ever had a needle or a loom. So, for a stretch of time, your ancestors were naked, hairless, and exposed to a world that did not care whether they froze or burned. What did they do? Scientists have actually found a clever way to answer this question, and it does not involve fabric at all. It involves lice. There are two kinds of lice that live on the human body. One kind lives in your head hair. The other kind lives only in clothing, tucked into the seams and folds of fabric. Geneticist Mark Stoneking realized that body lice could not have existed before clothing existed because they need fabric to survive. So he studied how long ago the DNA of body lice split off from head lice. The answer came back at around 170,000 years ago. That is roughly when your ancestors started wearing something on their skin. Notice what that means. Modern humans had already existed for tens of thousands of years before anyone got dressed. You spent an enormous stretch of your species' history completely bare. Then something changed. What changed? Around that time, the planet was sliding into a brutal ice age. Anthropologist Ian Gilligan has argued that clothing was not a fashion choice or a modesty choice at all. It was a survival technology invented in response to plunging temperatures. Your ancestors were not covering themselves out of embarrassment. They were covering themselves because the alternative was death by exposure. Think about what that first garment probably was. Not a woven shirt, not a stitched pair of pants, almost certainly a draped animal hide tied on with a strip of sinew or plant fiber. Crude, simple, life-saving. But here is the part that should stop you. Clothing did not just protect your ancestors from the cold. It changed the direction of human evolution itself. Once early humans could cover their skin, they no longer needed their bodies to solve every temperature problem on their own. Biologist Nina Jablonski has studied how the loss of body hair and the rise of clothing are tangled together in a single evolutionary story. Losing hair let the human body cool itself efficiently through sweat during long hunts in the heat. But that same hairless skin left you vulnerable once the temperature dropped. Clothing became the patch, the workaround, the thing that let a hairless ape survive in places its bare skin never could. That is the trade your ancestors made. Give up the fur. Gain the freedom to invent your own fur, whenever and wherever you needed it. And once that invention existed, everything opened up. A hairless, clothed human could walk into an Ice Age landscape that would have killed a naked one in hours. Clothing did not just help humans survive winters. It helped them migrate. It helped them spread out of Africa and into colder regions of Europe and Asia that would otherwise have been unlivable. You are, in a very real sense, wearing the reason your species is scattered across every continent on Earth. Here is where it gets stranger. Clothing did not stop at survival. It became identity almost immediately. Once humans had the technology to choose what covered their bodies, they also had the technology to say something with it. Archaeologists have found bone needles dating back roughly 40,000 years, evidence that clothing had moved from simple draped hides to fitted, stitched garments. Fitted clothing takes far more effort than a wrapped hide. Someone had to want it to look a certain way, not just function a certain way. Think about what that tells you. The moment clothing became more than a survival tool, it became a canvas, a way to show status, a way to show group identity, a way to show who you were before you ever said a single word. Your ancestors were doing this tens of thousands of years before anyone invented money, before anyone invented writing, before almost anything else you would call civilization. Does that surprise you? It probably shouldn't, because you still do exactly the same thing every single day. When you get dressed in the morning, you are not just regulating your body temperature. You are making dozens of tiny decisions about who you want people to think you are. A certain jacket says one thing. A certain color says another. You are running the same ancient program your ancestors ran with animal hides and bone needles, just with more fabric options. There's a deeper twist hiding in all of this too. Clothing was one of the first technologies that separated your species from raw biology. Every other animal is stuck with whatever covering evolution gave it. A polar bear cannot take off its fur when it walks somewhere warm. A lizard cannot add a layer when the desert night turns cold. But you can. You carry the ability to redesign your own environment, layer by layer, whenever you need to. That single shift, clothing as an external, changeable skin, may be one of the quiet turning points that let humans outcompete every other species on the planet. You did not have to wait for evolution to catch up with a changing climate. You just wrapped something around yourself and kept moving. So the next time you shrug on a coat without thinking, remember what is actually happening. You are activating a piece of technology that is at least 170,000 years old. You are repeating an act that let a hairless, vulnerable ape walk into an ice age and come out the other side. You are doing something no other animal on Earth can do in quite the same way. Let's slow down on that lice study for a moment, because the method itself is worth sitting with. Stoneking and his colleagues were not digging through ancient trash heaps looking for scraps of fabric. Fabric rots. It disappears within decades in most climates, which is exactly why archaeologists have almost no physical evidence of early clothing at all. Instead, the scientists looked at something that had been quietly recording history inside its own genes the whole time: a parasite. Body lice cannot grip bare skin the way head lice grip hair. They need the fibers of clothing to cling to and lay their eggs in, so the moment body lice appear as a separate genetic lineage, you know clothing must already exist. It is a strange kind of evidence. Your ancestors' oldest fashion choices were recorded not in the ground, but inside a bug. Now compare that timeline to what was happening with the climate. Around 170,000 years ago, the planet was deep inside a punishing glacial period. Average temperatures in parts of Africa and Eurasia dropped hard, and dropped for a long time. Ian Gilligan has pointed out that this is not a coincidence. He argues that clothing likely appeared, disappeared, and reappeared multiple times across human history, tracking almost exactly with cold snaps and warm spells.